All right, thank you. All right, just clicker, okay. So I decided to make my title more descriptive. It's Introduction to Crypto Economics Engineering. We are inventing a whole new academic field for that. You know, my wife has a PhD in econ, and I always tease her to say, what you study is not real science, it's soft science. Why? Because you can never do hypothesis testing with econ. If you have a hypothesis, it's all someone will learn it, and people behavior will change, and you can never test it in the real world. That's why the Nobel Prize in econ has never been awarded to economicists. They have always been awarded to mathematicians, you know. And that's the argument goes on, but she always come back and say, there's no Nobel Prize in computer science. You guys are even worse. You know, that's because you guys are engineers, not even science, right? However, that's where I say, how do I go forward? Huh? Oh, okay. Well, okay. All right. So actually, I do have a background in science. I have a PhD in physics from UT Austin, go Longhorns. And so in the past couple of years, I have been a venture capitalist, looking, investing mostly in software and open source and medical and those type of fields. We have looked hundreds of blockchain projects and invested in none. I'll tell you why, but I'll tell you why later in the talk. But if someone come to ask me, is blockchain or cryptocurrency a bubble? And I would say, can you imagine a year ago, you have a crypto conference in Dallas and have so many people? It's impossible. And you would never have imagined those projects raising so much money. So, but because all the things that happened, in the past year, I've decided not to quit my VC job and work full-time for a crypto project, which is CyberMiles. It's a Dallas-based company called 5Miles, and we work on this project together. And I'm also publishing a book. It's going to be published by Anderson Wesley later this year. It's called Building Blockchain Applications. A lot of this stuff is about crypto economics. It's how to use economics principles to solve engineering problems. I think this is one of the most interesting fields that this new revolution has brought us. Okay, So let's give a quick introduction of CyberMiles. So, many people know 5Miles is in Dallas, but what is CyberMiles? There's one thing that we know about internet today. It's the big internet companies are all network builders. If you look at a company like Amazon, Uber, Airbnb, none of these companies provide service on their own. They all spend a huge amount of money to build a network, then collect tax on that network. And because of the network, the effect of the network, it's always a winner takes all. No one cares about the second biggest e-commerce market. Everyone cares about the biggest one, right? So if we let this trend continue, there will be one single company left in any of the internet verticals. And we can see this very clearly with Uber. That's because I live in Austin. Some of you might remember the Austin City Council banned Uber like last year because of something about the driver background check. So anyway, so they banned Uber, and then people start to realize, what's so special about Uber? Nothing special about Uber. All it does is connecting drivers with riders. Why can't we build a network to do the same? And why can't we do it in a non-profit way? Instead of having a centralized company extracting all these profits, why can't we as a community do this? You can see the experiment that has been completed in Austin that has, numerous network comes up, and people have done, some successful, some not. However, later last year, the Texas state legislature said, no, there's no local rights here. The local government cannot decide to ban Uber. Uber has to be illegal in all of Texas. So Uber came back, and they spent a little bit of money, and all those nonprofits goes away. You cannot compete with a centralized organization So the traditional nonprofit model is really broken in here because you cannot raise money at the same speed as Uber, and you cannot execute as efficiently, and you cannot build your network as efficiently because you don't have a centralized agency that can make those decisions. So, but blockchain provides a rare opportunity for us to do it because a lot of you guys heard of the notion, the code is the law. The notion is to spell out all the residual values in the business contract so that everyone knows who they are getting into. And you can build a network this way instead of having someone who owns the network. If you ask my wife, what's the traditional economic theory about the firm? One is transaction theory, is to say if you have a centralized organization, the transaction cost goes down, so that's why you can run more efficiently. The other one is the residual value of the contract. That gives the rights to the property because if all the value of a property is known, then there should be no owner of the property because the owner of the property does not extract any more value than all the contract parties, right? It's because the contract rights of the property is unknown, then you need an owner. If anything unexpected happens, the owner gets a benefit. So if we live in a world that everything is so transparent, is so spelled out by the smart contracts on the blockchain, you would have a society that has no ownership rights, there's no equity rights, there's only contracts. I know I'm telling a very big vision, but that's what you do in a bubble. That's where you want to paint the world that's so vastly different than what we have today. Then we may have a shot getting there, right? We may have a shot getting halfway there. Even that is very important. So anyway, in terms of CyberMiles, we raised money through a token sale, and some institutes in Texas has participated, and we raised $30 million equivalent. And then our token is called CMT, is traded in the big changes around the world, like Binance and things like that. And the token price fluctuates a lot, so our market cap varies from $240 million to $50 million from time to time. And our testnet is going live in March. This is something I want to talk to you about. That's what's the unique technical and economics features that we have built into our network. So let's have a quick one slide to say what is a blockchain and why it's so slow. Blockchain does one thing only. It's a decentralized ledger. There's nothing else. It's very important to note, it's not just distributed, it's decentralized. There are lots of distributed technology, but in order to achieve truly decentralized technology, that's very hard. There's no DBA to manage the database. Everything has to come to a consensus from the whole network. That makes it very slow because it's limited by the slowest node on the entire network. So you can imagine, that's when people say Bitcoin is very slow, it is very slow because it needs to reach consensus through the whole network. And that's going back to the thesis why, as a VC, I never invested in blockchain companies. Even then they come and ask for like $1 million or $2 million, we never invested in them. Because when we compute their market size, it's all tiny. It's all enterprise use case, replacing some function of the database. You can never be bigger than Oracle. You can never be bigger than MySQL, not even bigger than MongoDB. Then why, as a venture investor looking for 100 times returns, why would they put money for that kind of risk, right? So that's why, before this bubble, when we look at blockchain companies, we look at many, and we never invested in any. So that's what I understand. It's a very limited use case. The blockchain is not good for much. It's just for a distributed ledger. However, this notion has been fundamentally disrupted this year when we have when this wave of token sale and when this wave of a blockchain revolution hits. So people start to re-examine what's the killer applications of blockchain, and then we start to realize there are killer applications of blockchains today. We just don't realize them. And what are they? They are accidental killer applications. They are not what they say. So when people say Bitcoin, the original Bitcoin white paper said it's a peer-to-peer payment system. Except Bitcoin is not good for payment. You read it all over the articles. It's support only 7 transactions per second. You cannot imagine a payment network that's slower. And the electricity required for a single Bitcoin trade would power a house for a whole month. It's extremely resource intensive. When Bitcoin says the transaction fee is going to be lower than the banks, it turns out to be completely inaccurate, right? The Bitcoin transaction fee is actually many times higher than a typical bank. Then what is Bitcoin? Turns out it's a good candidate for digital gold. Why do we say that? Come on. What? Okay. What is gold? Gold has limited industrial value. Most of the value in gold is consensus. It's what people believe it is. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's a church. It's a religion. Bitcoin is reaching that same status. When I bought Bitcoin in 2013, the price was like $1,000, and then the price goes down, and I keep buying until $100. I stop buying. And then, because deep in my mind, I think this thing is worthless. This true value is zero. So if it goes to $1,000, it's great, but it could really go to zero. So when the Bitcoin price come up to goes to $1,200, $1,500, I sold them all, right? Because to me, this at the time, this is opportunity to gamble, So a lot of people keep telling me, that's you hear this from taxi driver, Uber drivers too, they say, oh, you guys are in Bitcoin. I know Bitcoin when it was $1. And only if I spend $1,000 to buy it at $1. I always tell them, I bought Bitcoin at $1. And I sold at 1.5 because I made 50% profit, okay? All of you are gonna do exactly the same. Don't tell me you are visionary and think this thing gonna go 10,000-fold. You're not that visionary. You're gonna sell it at 50% profit because that's good enough. So that's, but today it's different. Today, the young people all over the world think Bitcoin is more valuable. It's more valuable than gold, right? So this is the number. You often hear why Bitcoin price can still go up. Why is $1 million or $500,000? This is why. This is where the number come from. It's to look at Bitcoin as gold. However, if you look at Bitcoin through this lens, then the 7 transactions per second is not a problem. Why? Because the gold is rarely transacted. The gold sits in the vault, and it's never moved. Even when countries do business, they never move. What's moved is the derivative paper on top of gold, which is something entirely different. However, if you look at Bitcoin through the lens of gold, the slow transaction speed is a virtue, not a problem. Let's look at another example, Ethereum, which is what we compare ourselves to. When Ethereum comes along, it says it's a world's computer. Because it has smart contracts, the Turing complete virtual machine, so you can do all kinds of computations on Ethereum, and so it's world's computer. However, the world's computer can only support tens of transactions per second. So it's not up to the computing tasks the world would require, right? Then what it is? Oh, sorry. So, and Ethereum code is incredibly buggy. That's another thing that prevents it from the world's computer. Sorry. Why? But Ethereum is a great way for tokenizing assets. That's the killer application it has found itself. In a real world, we have the stock market, we have the bond market, we have all kinds of markets. However, it's not as easy as issuing a token on Ethereum. And so if you look at the graph here, the ICO fundraising has far surpassed angel and seed investment from VCs. That's why I left the VC firm, because it's the writing is on the wall. The first industry is going to be disrupted is venture capital. Is that it becomes much easier, much more liquidity, much easier, and the token you get representing the asset is much smarter. You can have programs in it instead of just having a legal contract, have a piece of paper. So this is the accidental killer application of Ethereum. Come on. Okay. So blockchain versus cryptocurrency. This is JP Morgan's chairperson said, blockchain good, cryptocurrency bad. If you ask me a year ago what I think about this when sitting in the VC, I'll tell you the exact same thing. Technology is good, cryptocurrency is a scam. It's just, it's people who deal with cryptocurrency should be in jail. That's what I'm gonna say. However, this notion has been completely changed in the year from 2016 and 2017. Now, we think completely different. How different we think is, come on. This is Mark Zuckerberg's 2018 New Year resolution. And, oh, sorry, well. Oh, well, so I just trust me. That's that's. So his New Year resolution talked about Facebook being too centralized, and he wanted to investigate decentralized solutions. He talked about cryptocurrency. In nowhere did he mention a word of blockchain. It's not that important. It's cryptocurrency that's important. So my conclusion at least, is that there's only one killer application of blockchain. It is issuing cryptocurrency. Blockchain is no good for anything else. But that's, that may subject to a lot of debate. Is it true? There's many use cases for blockchains. But I would also argue that during my experience at the VC firm, it is all use case inside the IT department. Inside the IT department, you can never grow so big. But the cryptocurrency, you can change the world. That's where, so when we build CyberMiles, when we say we can have performance improvements of existing blockchains or existing smart platforms, we measure ourselves against those lens. Is that are we more effective in making cryptocurrency easier to access for the users and making cryptocurrency easy to adopt by the e-commerce players, right? As I just said, the internet is becoming a winner-take-all network. We want to build a collaborative network, building a smart contract instead of building a centralized corporation. Are we, the performance measures that we provide, is that fit that vision, or is that fit, someone else's vision? There's a lot of people says, I haven't seen a Facebook on blockchain, so this must be a scam. This cannot be real. But Facebook is, in the grand scheme of things, Facebook is part of advertising. Advertising is a small part of our economic system. The financial system is much larger, right? If you have a chance to disrupt the financial system, why would you want to disrupt advertising? That's, I always ask, that's when you talk about, the real use case of the blockchain and cryptocurrency, why would we limit ourselves? Why would we limit our imagination to the existing internet applications? Those are very small ones. So now we have I don't think I have much time left. So, but those are the next 3 slides are rather technical. So, if you're interested, we should discuss, offline. But those slides are the things that we try to do to improve the smart contract platform on top of Ethereum. We just saw it can only take 20 transactions per second. The code is very buggy. It's a one-size-fits-all blockchain that we don't believe fits engineering principle. So, I don't know why it's moving itself. But the first improvement that we did is consensus. So we get rid of the proof of work consensus on Ethereum, and we did a delegated proof of stake. And if you're interested in what delegated proof of stake is, it's representative democracy. It's you choose a Congress first and have the Congress act for you. So a lot of this, as I said, it's economics ideas. It's borrowed from the real world. And then there's sharding. It's another engineering concept to scale database. A lot of people do it in the engineering way to say that we find a way to sharding database by dividing letters into A to Z, something like that. But we are doing sharding through economic zones by simulating the real industries in the world or the real countries in the world, so that we develop a CyberMiles to be optimized for e-commerce, not optimized for anything else. I was just making this point. Ethereum, by being a world's computer and not optimized for anything, in the end, it was forced to optimize itself for the token issuance, right? It becomes the stock market. It becomes the New York stock market of the world. But then it cannot be optimized for anything else. But we want to optimize our blockchain for e-commerce applications. Consensus, sharding, and the layer 2 network. Layer 2 network is the idea that not everything goes on blockchain. A lot of encrypted data, consumer data, if you look at e-commerce, the personal identity transaction data should not be on the blockchain. So to have another high-speed network alongside with the blockchain that record crucial transactions, monetary transactions on the blockchain, but with all the other data that can be mined for the network, to better serve its customer, can be separate out on the layer 2 network. So this is another, key innovation, key improvement that we bring to the existing blockchain network. So I'll end this talk with, I talk about 3 things: consensus, sharding, and layer 2 network. None of this is really new. It's that, if you believe me, the founders of Ethereum and founders of Bitcoin are super smart people. This is the idea that they have already had for many years. They were never able to bring themselves to implement that for two reasons. The first, there's no bubble. There's no money to try those ideas. Now there's money to try every single plausible ideas out there in the world. So someone gonna make it work. We hope it's us, right? That's the first thing. And the second is the early adopters are ideology purists. They were a lot of things that we do, like DPoS, like have a Congress in the middle rather than direct democracy, goes very against their belief what the blockchain should be. And for us to say we want to optimize for e-commerce rather than to be the world's computer, it also goes against their core philosophy, right? So this is one of the things that you would hear that people say, when people criticize CyberMiles, they may say, oh, it's too centralized, or it's an inelegant solution, things like that. But we are optimizing for the user experience. We are optimizing for the applications that we see can be built on the blockchain, not for the political purists, right? That's so many of those projects has been tried to achieve. So that's, I think my time is up. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Did you have no more questions?
I think my time is up.
No, you can have some questions. Did anyone have questions for Michael? Okay. Yes, go ahead.
My question is twofold. The first, there are other projects that also try to do the same thing after the success of Ethereum. Second is, what's the risk of these companies failing because of Ethereum forking?
So first of all, there are many people doing the same thing, yes. That's the defining characteristics of the bubble. If in a bubble you are doing something unique, then you're doing it wrong. Because that's because everyone sees the same opportunity. You are not that smart. Okay, that's so we are trying to be the best engineering solution out there. So we want to be the best, and we have our unique philosophy to do it. Right? That's so. And I'm not worried about Ethereum forking because we are, in a sense, trying to fork Ethereum, trying to make it better. But we have a notion that is we are spooning Ethereum, not forking it. So we are trying to replicate its states in our blockchain instead of having a new cryptocurrency that goes in a perpendicular way, right? So there are lots of ideas. That's I love to discuss offline, but in general, it's just I think a lot of competitors, which is good, and I think we're going to win, because we have a very practical programmatic worldview than that.
Okay, thank you, Michael.